I'd like to welcome everyone on behalf of the Armenian Mirror-Spectator. As you know, this is our 85th anniversary. The Mirror-Spectator has been around serving the Armenian community as well as those who are interested in Armenian-related affairs for a long time now. But it's making, like all other newspapers, all possible efforts to continue to change and to adapt to new technologies. And part of what we do is we like to also keep in contact with our audience occasionally with these kinds of events. And I have to say I'm very excited about tonight's event because, number one, I can see we have a very good audience. I know that it's a very interested audience. I know a lot of you, so I'm pleased that you're able to come. And number two, we have a very exciting panel. We have some of the best journalists from different parts of the world. We are lucky sometimes that we're able to print some of their work in our own paper. And tonight we want to look at and hear from them and see what their views are, both on some of the broader issues of journalism and fake news, but also in connection with Armenian issues like the Armenian Genocide, its denial, Karabakh, and other things. So what we're going to do is we're going to first give an opportunity for our renowned speakers to talk to you for a while, four of them. And then afterwards, we'll have a few minutes perhaps of exchange. Perhaps they want to comment on each other's presentations. And then afterwards, we'll open it for question and answer. And we'll start with, I have to say, I'm particularly excited to have, and also I have to say that it's an interesting and varied group of journalists. There are some interesting coincidences. I know that, I think on April 24th, 1915 in Ankara, both Robert Fisk and David Barsamian gave speeches, if I'm not mistaken. And then, again, I think Amberin Zaman in 2009 visited Terzian and David Barsamian were there. So there's some intersection, but their views are very different on a lot of other things. And we're going to start with Robert Fisk. Robert Fisk wrote in The Age of the War that as a Middle East correspondent of the Independent of London, I endure a charmed but dangerous life. I travel to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Palestine, Israel. I live in Lebanon. I've covered over 32 years in the Middle East, 11 major wars, countless insurgencies, and more massacres, more sheer bloody slaughter than I care to count. This, and he goes on, another important definition of journalism for him, which he took from an Israeli journalist, is, quote, to challenge authority, all authority, especially so when governments and politicians take us to war, when they have decided that they will kill and others will die. And he's one of those lucky youth who knew from childhood what he wanted to do. It took me 20, 30, maybe who knows how many years for me to even have an idea of what really is good for me. But he knew from his childhood that he wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And he produced, and he's a very prolific producer, and it's amazing the things that he's seen with his own eyes. He has at least 5 or more books. His earliest works deal with Ireland, The Point of No Return, and In Time of War. And then he went on to become the Middle East correspondent. So he has Pity the Nation about Lebanon at war, the massive book, The Great War for Civilization, about the conquest of the Middle East, and of course, The Age of the Warrior, and he's working on another. And his books are not light reading. He approaches things in a way through personal experience, and he makes you feel what he sees and what he feels. You may or may not agree with his ideology or point of view, but what he does is something that's very rare. And as he says, he's not a hotel journalist. He's somebody who gets you information. And also, by accident, I found, I should mention, he did some very important things on Armenian issues, and he almost, in several of his books, he has chapters on them, including on the famous discovery of the Armenian bones in the cave in, Margada, sorry. and the Khabur River. And that was also made into a film afterwards, The Hidden Holocaust in 1992, which is one of the great documentaries on the Armenian genocide. He also went to Ain Tura orphanage and has written quite a bit about it. I also found something very interesting, which I didn't know. There's a new word called fisking. You know what that means, of course. Yes, I just found that out. Unfortunately, what it is it's a blogosphere slang, which describes a point-by-point criticism that highlights perceived errors or disputes the analysis. So he's become evidently that prominent that people are actually working, and they actually coin a word in order to try to criticize what he does. So in any case, we're very lucky to have him here. He's a great speaker. He has some very interesting things to say, and we have other very great speakers afterwards. So now let me call to the podium Robert Fisk. Thank you.